we have rats, Carol said as she stood outside the front screen door. Finally dawned on me she was waiting for an invitation to come inside my house. I'd never been very quick with those types of things. Pushing against the green frame with the broken screen, I invited Carol inside. Paul left piles of birdseed out in the grass in our backyard all summer. Said he liked all the birds gathering. Carol's monologue was gathering steam, and I was already timing my blinks and eye contact. Stare into Carol's eyes. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. Shift gaze away. 1 Mississippi. Look back at Carol and tilt head. 2 Mississippi. Adjust posture. Well, wouldn't you know, the rats must have heard the news and have been having a feast. We saw them and they're huge. Anyway, pest control came out today and set up poison traps at the back of our yard. Jesus, that's disgusting. How big are they? I asked. Around 8 inches, but I swear to God I saw a foot long. Gross, I said, and exaggerated my shudder. The guy from pest control took a look at your property too. Hope that's okay. Did he find anything? I asked. She shook her head. But here's the thing. Paul saw one this morning duck into your woodpile at the side of your house. My stomach dropped. The best thing to do, I think, would be to move the woodpile. My anxiety increased as Carol stood in my entryway holding me hostage. Already I felt like everyone in the neighborhood thought I was strange. I didn't want to make it worse by not making eye contact or making too much eye contact. Nod and break eye contact. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. I counted in my head, trying my best to imitate a normal adult conversation. You don't have to get rid of it. Maybe move it to the back of your property. That way the critters aren't so close to your house. Translation, move it so the rats wouldn't be close to her home either, as the woodpile was on the side of my house that was between us. I'm kind of nervous about the thing jumping out at me, but I think you're right. Better have it as far away from the house as possible. Good thinking, she said smugly, like I was some kid who had just been tricked into eating vegetables. Of all my neighbors, I'd only really talked to Carol, or rather Carol talked to me. It seemed only a while ago Carol had cornered me in my foyer and told me about her mouse infestation. She told me they had stored grass seed over the winter in what they thought was an impenetrable shed at the back of their yard. I opened the shed come spring, and those damn mice had a whole mouse condo set up. They had torn into the filling of every patio chair and gorged on the seed all winter long. They were the fattest little buggers I ever saw, she said. Carol talked to everyone in the neighborhood. If something was going on, she knew about it, and then, soon enough, so did everybody else. Our house was backed into undeveloped land, a perfect breeding ground for rodents. There were signs up showing pictures of the buildings to come. It seemed as though they had been there forever with no evidence of progress. A ghosted development, according to Carol. I lived alone in a far too big house for just me, but I liked it. Except when things like moving rat-infested woodpiles came up, or the strange noises I would hear throughout the house, especially at night. All the noises could be explained, I reassured myself. Still, the sound sketched pictures against my brain, sending my imagination to reel in the darkness. I had noticed evidence of mice in my own house and figured maybe the critters had been responsible for at least some of the things I was hearing. I still half believed my dead husband was haunting me, punishing me like I felt I deserved. I didn't tell Carol about any of those things. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I bought a humane mousetrap, the capture and release type. When I first set it up, I checked within a day, and already there was a mouse. I picked up the gray box and looked into the thing's dark, googly eyes. His nose twitched up towards me. I wondered what I must look like to this little creature through those dark marble eyes staring through the plastic cover. Did he question his fate? Was he afraid? Did he notice his breathing getting dense as he reabsorbed the carbon dioxide into his minuscule body? Maybe the poison gas built up just enough to dull his senses to his predicament. He watched me from the passenger seat as I drove him a few miles out towards the country. I didn't like to leave the house, but I could manage for a while when I needed to. They say a rodent will find its way back to you if you don't abandon it far enough away. I put over 3 miles between the little guy and me. They say you're better off to kill it. I didn't kill the first one, but released him into the field and imagined he found some relief being free again. I put the trap with some fresh food inside, back along the wall behind the furnace. I figured there must be more mice. It dawned on me one night, weeks later, that I hadn't checked the trap since I set it a second time. A ripple of guilt flooded over me. What was meant to be a humane catch and release trap had inadvertently become a coffin for the little beast I found inside. Her marble eyes were inverted, and her body withered. I went to dump her out, but her body fluids had dried and she became superglued to the bottom of the container. Even if I had scraped her fur off, the other critters would surely smell the spilled blood of a sister, and the trap would be useless as my holy screen door. It would have been nice to have someone around to remind me to check the trap, or at least have done my dirty work and dispose of the poor matted soul. When the noises were still, sometimes I let my mind wander in the dark of my room. It would be nice to listen to someone breathing next to me again, to have someone's other than my reassurances. They would tell me that it was only a draft that made the door downstairs creak, and no, dear, it's not an intruder that's causing the sound of footsteps through the main floor of the house. In the morning, I always inspect the house from top to bottom. If there'd been anyone creeping around my house, there was no evidence to be found. But at night, when the noise peaks, I'm tempted to buy a chamber pot to avoid venturing outside the safety of my bedroom, where horror conjures below. A middle-aged woman who was afraid of the dark, afraid to be alone, but even more hesitant to let anyone in.